Welcome to Lesson 8.8, Day 2, Surface Area. Today we're going to practice again drawing nets for our 3D figures, and we are going to find the surface area of prisms, pyramids, and cylinders. Alright, so when we talk about surface area, this is the kind of problem we're talking about. You're wrapping a present for your friend's birthday, and you want to know exactly how much wrapping paper you would need. You have to cover both bases of the present and all four sides. So in order to know how much you need to know how much area you have to cover. We call this surface area. Okay, so we said a net is the pattern you can fold to form a 3D figure. The surface area is the sum of all the areas of a 3D figure's faces. So what this means is we can break down 3D figures into their nets, and then if we can find the area of each of these individual shapes, we can find the surface area of the entire shape. So in this case, if we broke it down and found that the area of each triangle was 12 feet squared and the area of the square base was 9 feet squared, we would take 12 plus 12 plus 12 plus 12, the four triangles, plus 9, the square base, and get a total area of 57 feet squared. So whatever you see on the surface of the 3D figure or the outside of that 3D figure is what we call the surface area. All right, so the first thing you want to do is you want to break the 3D figure down into its net. So what you want to think of is the base of the object. In this case, our base is rectangular. It is a 10 by 10 base. Okay, so we have our 10 by 10 base. Each of these sides is 10 inches by 4 inches tall. So here's the 10 inches by 4 inches tall. You want to be really careful with how you break down your net, and then you need to place all of your dimensions. It's getting to be a little bit simple for us to draw the nets, but putting in these dimensions can be very difficult. So make sure to take your time and put all the numbers in the correct place. If you don't, you could find the incorrect area for your shapes and come up with an incorrect surface area. So in this case, if this is a 10 by 10 square on the bottom, you know that the area has to be 10 times 10, which is 100 inches squared. Since prisms have two congruent bases, you know that if the area of this base is 100, then you know that the area of this base has to be 100 inches squared. Now here you have a side of a rectangle that's 10 inches by 4 inches. So you would do the area formula, length times width or base times height, and you would get 40 inches squared. Each of these is going to be 4 inches tall because when you put them all together, when you fold them up, it's like a box. You want your box to be the same height all the way around. So you know that, again, this will be 10 inches here and this will be 4 inches, making the area 40 square inches. And you know that the shapes, their opposite shapes are congruent. So again, we have 40 inches squared here and 40 inches squared here. Okay, to finish finding the surface area, we take all of these. So we know we have 100 plus 100 gives us 200. So there's our two congruent bases. And then we have our four sides. So we have 40 plus 40 plus 40 plus 40, which gives us 120. We need to take the 200 plus the 120, and we are going to have 320 inches squared. So if we were to wrap this present, we would need 320 square inches of wrapping paper. Okay, so let's try this again. On this one, we have a base that is 12 inches long by 5 inches wide. right? So then you have to fold down, again, it's like peeling a banana, you have to fold down each layer. You have a 12-inch by 2-inch high side to fold down this way. You also have a 5-inch by 2-inch side that would fold down to the left and to the right. So your front and your back are 12 by 2, your top and bottom are 12 by 5, and your left and your right are 5 by 2. So when you unfold this, you need to make sure again that all of those dimensions are in the right place. So when you find the area, you just find the area of each figure. This is where it's helpful to show your work in the figure so you know which pieces you found and which pieces you're still looking for. So here we would take the 12 inches times the 5 inches and we would get 60. Now here's the one where we have the 2-inch high and the 12-inch wide. So it would be 12 times 2, which would give us 24. Again, it's 12 by 5, which is going to give us 60. And this one here is 5 by 2, so 5 times 2, which is going to give us 10. 12 by 2, which gives us 24. And 5 by 2, which is going to give us 10. So now when you take all these pieces and add them together, typically when you're working with rectangular prisms, you should always have 2 sets of congruencies. So you should have 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 1 and 2. So every shape should have a congruent pair or a congruent partner. So you should have 60 plus 60. Okay, so this one here and this one here, which gives you 120. You have 24 and 24, which is going to give you 48. And 10 plus 10, which is going to give you 20. I know we can add all these together in one shot. However, it's nice sometimes to just check and make sure. Okay, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 faces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's nice to know that you have all the pieces that you need. So then now I can add all of these together. 120 plus 48 is going to give me 168. And 168 plus 20 is going to give me 188 inches squared. Okay, now we're going to move on to a cylinder. A cylinder is a little bit more difficult, so I want you to think of a soup can. When you think of the label of a soup can, what shape is that label in? We talked about this yesterday. That soup can label gets printed in a rectangle. Okay, so here's the label of your soup can, and then the top and the bottom of the soup can are circles. So now this becomes a little bit different because our area formula becomes different. So when you're looking at this cylinder, you have a cylinder that has a radius of 4 feet and a height of 7 feet. The only other dimension they can give you here is diameter. So now we have to remember our area formula for a circle, which is area equals pi times the radius squared. So we're going to use 3 and 1400ths for pi. 4 is our radius. So we're going to take 3 and 1400ths times 16, which gives us, and this is where you can use your calculator, 3 and 1400ths times 16 gives us 50 and 2400ths. But now you have to remember that's only the area of the top base. With cylinders, it's the same thing as prisms. The two bases have to be congruent. So because these two are congruent, we don't have to do the area formula again. We can just take the top and multiply it by 2 because there are 2 of those circles, one here and one here. which gives us 100 and 48 hundredths feet squared. Now, this is where it gets a little difficult because in order to find the length of your rectangle, you have to find the circumference of the circle. The reason being, this soup can label wraps around the lid of the soup can. So if you want to find this distance, you have to find the circumference of the circle. So we're not quite done with the circle yet. The circumference is equal to 2 times the radius times pi. So in this case, we have circumference equals 2 times 4 times 3 and 14 hundredths, which gives us 8 times 3 and 14 hundredths. I'm going to go over here, and I get 25 and 12 hundredths feet. But now we have to be really careful because we have to remember that that just gives us our base or our width of our rectangle. So 25 and 12 hundredths feet is the width of the rectangle, and now the height they give us over here, which is 7. So in order to find the area of this rectangle or of the label of the soup can, we have to take the circumference and multiply it by the height. So we're going to take 25 and 12 hundredths times 7, and that's going to give us 175 and 84 hundredths feet squared. Okay, then we add these two together because you're adding the area of the two bases plus the area of the label. We get 4 plus 8 is 12, carry the 1, is 13, carry the 1, bring your decimals straight down. 5 plus 1 is 6, 7 plus 0 is 7, 1 plus 1 is 2. So the surface area of your shape is 276 and 32 hundredths feet squared. You have an example like this to try in your notes that I want you to take your time and try on your own, and you're going to have to give it as an answer when you post to Edmodo tonight. Okay, but please make sure that you take your time. Okay, these are very difficult formulas and difficult areas to find because there are so many pieces to the puzzle. So if you look here, you have this problem where you have a radius of 5 inches and a height of 12 inches. Each of these problems asks you to draw a net first and place your dimensions inside. I highly suggest doing this because it helps you realize what your measurements are, and it helps you find your areas. And then if you do this, I can also go back and help you and see if it was a mistake in the area formula or if it was a mistake with your dimensions. All right, so back to our notes. The last thing we have is a pyramid. Now, the nice thing here is that you're going to, again, just peel apart your layers. So you have a square base on the bottom, which means you have 4 faces that are going to come off the side. Pyramids are some of the nicest nets to make because you just draw your base and then a triangle off of each side. So in this case, your base is a 7 by 7 foot square with an 8 foot tall triangle coming off each side. Remember the area formula for a triangle is area equals half times the base times the height. So for each triangle, it's going to be 1/2 times 8 times 7. Now you know each of these has to be congruent because each base is 7, and each of these has to be 8 feet tall in order to meet at this point at the top. So we have half of 56. And half of 56 is going to give us 28 feet squared. Now that's just one of the triangles, and we have 4 of them. So to make this go a little bit faster, we can say that we have 28 times 4 because we have 1, 2, 3, 4 triangles. 8 times 4 is 36. 2 times 4 is 8. Add the 3 is 11. So the area of your triangles alone equals 116 feet squared. And then of course you have your square base, which is 7 by 7, which is going to give you an area of 49 feet squared. So in this case, we're going to take 116 and add 49. 6 plus 9 gives us 15. Carry the 1. 4 plus 1 is 5, plus 1 is 6. 1 plus 0 is 1. So your surface area of this pyramid is 165 feet squared. Again, the most important part of this is being able to break down each of your shapes into their individual nets. And then even more important is making sure that you put your dimensions in the right place. So please make sure to do this when you're trying the parts of the notes on your own, especially so that when you come in the next day, if you do have an answer that's incorrect, we can sit down and work on it together. So you have 4 problems that I would like you to try tonight. Okay, so you have this one we did together. You have the triangular prism. We'll say that this is number 1 for Edmodo purposes. Your cylinder is number 2. And your square pyramid is number 3. If need be, please round your answer to the 100th place. As always, if you have any questions, please post them to Edmodo or write them down and bring them to class tomorrow.